His new digs in Ottawa. NDP leader Jack Layton and his wife Olivia Chow showed up at Stornoway today. They picked up the keys to Stornoway this afternoon. That's the mansion in Rockcliffe Park in Ottawa that serves as the residence of the leader of the official opposition. It's the first time in history the NDP has been the beneficiary of that perk since it has never before formed the official opposition. Layton turned down an offer from the National Capital Commission to repaint the entire home. Instead, he's asked for touch-ups. It will be a few days, though, before they settle in. Layton and Chow are going to be leaving soon for the NDP convention in Vancouver. Well, let's talk about some of the day's Keys events here with our panel of party strategists. Bill Pristanski is a Conservative commentator. Ian Wayne is the Deputy Director of Communications for the NDP, and Emmanuel Morin is a Liberal commentator. And we just finished watching Jack Layton with those keys to Stornoway. Another milestone for the leader of the Democratic Party, now the leader of the official opposition in the country. And he's leaving in fairly short order, Ian, to head off to the convention in Vancouver, where the Democrats are celebrating 50 years as a party. And one of the things they'll be doing is dropping from the party's constitutional preamble the word socialist, gone from the NDP vocabulary, at least in the party constitution preamble. What's going on here?
Well, I think nobody should worry. Our policies remain the same in all different ways that we've articulated them in the past. But I think after 50 years, there may be time to update some of the language. I mean, we don't want to get caught up on labels to try and define who you are as a party. I mean, you want to define yourself by what you want to achieve, what you put out there in front of Canadians as your policies. And if you're going to find one word like that to try and describe them, try and make the word as accurate as possible. I think social democratic, which is I think what the suggestion is, may be a bit more accurate in these times. But I think when you watch Mr. Layton entering Stornoway and the excitement and the kind of momentous change that is for us as a party, what it means looking forward, it's really exciting. This convention is going to be a chance really to celebrate what's our results from the past, our recent achievements, and where things go in the future. And
you're also going to, and part of that preamble talks about the changes will delete the notion that it's the idea of making a profit's not a good idea. So there's big changes.
Yeah, and I think most of those changes people have seen over the past 50 years. What kind of lags behind is the preamble to the Constitution, which just has never been tackled. Because,
right, Bill, so
as anyone will attest, changing these things internally in an organization takes some technical details. You have to do it at convention. Convention's only happened every 2 years, so these things.
We'll have this, and we'll have the NDP convention covered wall to wall this coming weekend, as we did with the Conservative Party convention last week. And Bill, so listening to Ian here, you're no longer to call them socialists now, because that's going to be gone from their vocabulary.
Well, don't worry. Just because they take it out of their constitution won't stop me telling the truth. I mean, obviously they have a secret agenda, and we're going to have to find out what that secret agenda is. But and I just warn you, changing your constitution, it's fun. I mean, I have the scars to prove it from our convention. But no, it's they can say what they want, but we know what the NDP government stands for. The government in waiting stands for. But no, clearly there's also
a bit of a Freudian slip there. The NDP government, said, because you start dropping words, and then
you stand for putting Canadian families first.
Well, you're going after
letting big business and big oil.
You trumped the Liberals in the last election. Now you're going after the Conservatives.
I think there's a lot of Conservatives who are
we're going to vote NDP. I don't think
who are in fact voting NDP because they also want to put families first. I think
they want lower taxes.
I think
it's lower taxes. They want a low tax agenda.
Let's bring
Emmanuel. They don't want
to
tax and spend NDP socialists.
Let's bring Emmanuel into the conversation.
Social Democrats.
Okay, hang on. Now we sound like we're at a convention, and next they'll be challenging. Someone's going to challenge the chair here.
No, never do that. Never do that.
Go ahead, Emmanuel.
I think it's comical, though, to say that it's just in the preamble. I mean, the preamble is the soul of the Constitution. At the end of the day, the NDP has been a rigid ideology party for a very long time. The challenge will be whether or not to see if this will pass in the Constitution, if they'll get those changes. But nonetheless, actions speak louder than words, and it's all about where the change is going to be in the House.
Do you think we'll see a collision at the convention between there is everyone have been covered many of them. There's the socialist side, the very socialist side of the Democratic Party, and then you're going to look at the side that's going to talk a lot about electoral success and some of the things that the NDP's done to be successful in office.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see these two visions clash?
I mean, I think there could be some, overshadowing, the big celebration. I think, and the NDP has a lot to celebrate here. But these are they're going to have a lot of challenges, and this is just one of them. I think there's an opportunity for that to become an issue.
I think you're going to find a party that's actually very united, very principled. I think that for what is rigid ideology from one person's point of view, it's just having principles from someone else's point of view. I don't think New Democrats, and I think the same is true for Conservatives, it's not so much a rigid ideology as having a principle that really informs what your party is about. It's different for the Liberals because they're not built around a kind of principled stand on things or one particular political viewpoint. It's built around trying to achieve government and trying to achieve electoral success.
Embracing free market principles in the 21st century.
I think Jack had some economists run for us several elections ago that really showed that we were serious about talking to everybody in society, business people, and look at the small business tax cuts and things we proposed in the last campaign.
Let's talk about business, and let's talk about the strikes the country's now. For the government is now talking about back to work legislation to deal with Air Canada and to deal with Canada Post. Your critics on the other side of the table here, Bill, are beside you here. These are draconian measures. You need to let the bargaining process go on for some time before shutting this process down and ordering these people back to work.
Well, Canada Post and their union have been talking for a long time, and then they've had this series of labor stoppages for the last couple of weeks, and in fact, their whole business is down by 50% because of it. So, this is about a very fragile economy that has a very strong recovery, strongest in the Western world, strongest among the G20 countries. Over 500,000 jobs have been created since the Great Recession that was global in nature and affected Canada. And the Prime Minister and the government are very fearful that because of the fragility of the recovery, we can't have both the postal system not working and Air Canada not flying. And there is a benevolence there from the Prime Minister. He doesn't want to see all the NDP delegates flying out to Vancouver have to get on a non-union airline.
Ian, go ahead.
I've already booked a code. I think that...
On which airline?
I don't know if I want to do any free advertising for any of the airlines, but it's not unionized, as it turns out.
They really are changing.
But I'm sure our members appreciate us still having convention. But I think the point here is that you don't want the government to step in and take sides in this kind of collective bargaining process. You want the two sides to be able to bargain collectively. The ink was, barely dry on the strike notices for Air Canada when the back-to-work legislation was already being tabled in the House of Commons. That's not allowing collective bargaining to happen or any bargaining to happen in the case of Air Canada. In the case of Canada Post, there was a couple of offers from the unions to get everyone back to work and to stop the rotating strikes as long as they could just continue under the current collective agreement until the negotiations were finished. This is not an unreasonable position. Canada Post said no because they knew perfectly well that the government was waiting there with back-to-work legislation. So the problem is you cannot go in there as government and pick winners and losers in these conflicts.
Emmanuel, what's your view on this?
I can't agree more with Ian. At the end of the day, it's like taking a sledgehammer to the Air Canada workers 36 hours after declare a strike. All of a sudden, they show a double standard between Canada Post workers and Air Canada workers. The government's role should be, like you said, not to pick winners and losers, but to help them find a compromise amongst each other. And like Ian said, Canada Post workers had said they'd go back to their old collective bargaining agreement until they negotiated a new contract, so that wasn't necessary.
Okay, let's move on to the last topic as we're almost out of time here. The Senate reform bill to set term limits for senators and a bill also to talk about Senate elections. We were going to see these introduced by the government, they said, through the Senate. Bill, now it turns out, when they get introduced, they'll be introduced in the House of Commons because a number of the senators that Stephen Harper appointed to the upper chamber are now balking at the idea of serving only 9 years before they have to either quit or run for election. What's happening here?
Well, I don't know of any senator that has said that, and I don't think anybody has quoted anyone, and so this is pure speculation on people's part. But I think in the end, the people that were appointed by Prime Minister Harper all signed a document that said that they would respect the term limit. So I think there will be no problem there.
Yeah. The document's still not legal binding.
I've been part of negotiations with the Conservatives and Democratic Reform. They've said explicitly they will bring this into the House where it's most likely to pass. and then push it to the other one. The fact that it's coming to the House of Commons is definitely a worrisome sign, because if there is going to be reform, you certainly need to get it through the Senate.
Well, the whole idea was to showcase the symbolism of having this bill start in the Senate, have those conservative senators pass it, and then have it go to the House.
Too. I think it's also that there you have a Liberal opposition who will oppose it. Well, in the House, you have us, who have a stronger, position on the Senate than the Conservatives do. I think
you'd like all the senators. The term limit would be zero.
Works just fine with
You'd like them all to resign their seats and never run.
It serves no useful purpose in our political system. It is not necessary, and I think this shows how difficult it's been for Stephen Harper to actually reform it or change it. And even if he got these changes through, they're minor tinkering along the edges of the Senate. They don't really deal with real Senate reform, a la the Reform Party of 15 years ago. I think they have to declare the fact that they have failed on Senate reform and move on to abolition.
Emmanuel?
Yeah, I mean, the Prime Minister just doesn't have a very good track record on Senate reform. If he can't whip his own vote,
let him finish.
But if he can't even whip his own vote, if he can't even whip his own vote, I mean, that talks plenty, right? At the end of the day, how do you convince premiers to agree to your vision when you can't even get your own appointed senators to agree to it?
Well, I'll make a prediction right here that he'll whip his own vote and it'll pass the House and it'll pass the Senate.
Right. Well, but it's going to go to the House first, though. When it was supposed to start in the Senate,
doesn't matter which way it goes. It's going to pass.
Well, you also have 3 or 4 premiers, some threatening legal action, some saying they're going to take it to the Supreme Court.
Quebec is saying they'll go to court.
Like the whole thing is a mess. I mean, the point has to be made that this attempt at Senate reform has failed. I don't think it's possible in our current system. I think the only a sensible option at this point is just to abolish it, to make everyone's life a lot easier.
All right, I don't know, maybe if things keep going the way they're going, we might end up there. But thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take a break on Primetime Politics. When we come back, we'll present our longer form coverage today. A Senate committee examines government spending plans. Back in 90 seconds.